I can't be the only one who always thought there was something a little sinister about Clippy. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2025 sci-fi action sequel, M3GAN 2.0. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and even some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. M3GAN 2.0 stars Allison Williams, Violet McGraw, and Jenna Davis, and was directed by Gerard Johnstone. Set 2 years after the events of the first film, it tells the story of a software developer and her niece who must turn to an unexpected ally in order to stop a rogue military-grade AI robot. Sequels! Sequels everywhere! We currently live in a world dominated by franchises. So anytime there's a movie that's even moderately successful, there's a good chance we're gonna end up with at least one sequel, if not a whole franchise. This can happen for films in any genre, but historically we've often seen it manifest in horror, often with rapidly diminishing returns. There's this unusual perceived sense that horror fans have lower standards for movies, which helps to feed the production of some of these franchises. I mean, how else would we end up with 8 Leprechaun movies, or 6 Sharknadoes? Within this popularity pump-out model, we sometimes see a unique, or perhaps more accurately, exceedingly ununique phenomenon, especially with first sequels. Studios and filmmakers try to capitalize on what audiences liked about the first movie, so they end up giving us more of the same, a rehashed version of the same basic story, just usually a bit worse. It's certainly the safe bet, but not always the most satisfying one for audiences, who are left asking whether a sequel was really necessary when the first movie's right there. M3GAN is exactly the type of movie you'd expect to follow this pattern. It's a movie that easily could have stayed self-contained, and didn't really need a sequel. It was also the type of film that could have easily just repeated the same basic plotline for a follow-up, in a Return of M3GAN kind of way. Admittedly, a sequel like that probably still would have been fun to a certain extent, and it definitely would have been the safer and easier choice. But instead, the filmmakers opted to mix things up, not only avoiding just rehashing the same story, but also, most surprisingly, significantly shifting the genre. The first M3GAN was a campy little horror comedy gem. Relegated to the cold, dreary void of January, I don't think many people expected much from this familiar-sounding horror film. But fittingly, given the AI storyline, the film was aware of these preconceived notions, embracing the ridiculousness of its premise and going all in on its silly, campy, over-the-top qualities. It prioritized sheer entertainment value while still delivering the minor chills and thrills audiences craved from a horror comedy. This year's so-called 2.0 upgrade sees a major shift in approach, almost completely ditching the horror in favor of action. It ramps up the sci-fi elements of the plot while simultaneously settling into an action comedy storyline. This is obviously very different from the first movie from a genre and tonal standpoint, pulling its similarly derivative plotline from a whole new set of films this time. But in spite of this, M3GAN 2.0 somehow still feels like a M3GAN movie at its core. It's still campy, it's still fun and entertainingly ridiculous, it's still self-aware and enjoyably violent. It sports a few significant modifications and a new updated skin, but ultimately 2.0 is built from the same source code as the original film. In spite of the core similarities, this shift in genre is sure to disappoint or upset some people. Understandably, because this isn't really a horror movie anymore. But if you like action or sci-fi action franchises like Terminator, then you'll probably still be able to enjoy M3GAN 2.0 for what it is. I do miss the horror elements of the first film a bit, but for the most part, I'd say that the genre shift actually works here. That said, one place things do get a bit shaky is with the story. The first film was a fairly streamlined take on a traditional killer doll movie in the vein of Child's Play. It had a few subplots and a bit more family drama heart, but directed the audience's attention to one basic thing: M3GAN. The increased sci-fi tilt here in 2.0 opens up the story breadth dramatically. It's not just a rehash, so things get a good deal more involved than just the evil killer doll premise. As a result, the story ends up devolving into something a bit convoluted. with a more globally impactful storyline when compared to the smaller contained story of directive and obsession in the original film. 2.0 is less streamlined and has more moving parts, with M3GAN going Mission Impossible in a Terminator universe, full of ever-shifting story parameters. It feels a bit messier and all over the place when compared to the first film, but that certainly doesn't mean that this sequel is bad. Like the first film, M3GAN 2.0 never tries to be something it's not. It knows what it is, never taking itself seriously, and is instead fully aware of how campy and ridiculous it is. It's very silly, and at times more than a little stupid, but it's so much fun. Sure, it's got the sci-fi stuff, and tackles some expanded AI themes, all while maintaining some of the unexpected family drama-based heart of the original. But the immensely ramped-up action adds a whole new level of entertainment to the proceedings, and the returning characters are just as fun as last time. M3GAN is still the sassy star here, bringing the same unpredictable fierceness to all of her new forms, not to mention some entertaining new dance moves and another hilariously placed song. The story's comparatively muted horror gives Gemma the flexibility to be funnier here, including plenty of entertaining interactions with M3GAN and some action scenes that'll remind you of a certain Lee Whannell sci-fi actioner. Katie's a few years older, so she's able to get in on the fun a bit more, and Gemma's tech team have a bit more to do this time around too. Pair that with the believable dead-eyed stare of a robotic newcomer, and a few other memorable new side characters, and there's a lot of entertainment to be gleaned from this. It's far from being a great movie, and will probably be widely viewed as a downgrade for the franchise, rather than the name-implied upgrade, but once again, M3GAN proves to be a real crowd pleaser. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is how fun this movie is. This is a definite holdover pro from the first film. And I know how it sounds putting fun as the biggest pro, but that's honestly what's prioritized in this film. Yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it's over the top and campy and frequently ridiculous, but that's where the enjoyment comes from. There's no hint of self-seriousness here, and if the film doesn't take itself seriously, we're never compelled to either, leaving us to just sit back and have a fun time. The second pro is the genre shift. This is honestly more on the mixed side of things for me, because I definitely do miss the horror comedy elements of the first film here. That said, I think the shift was an interesting and overall good idea. By shifting so drastically from horror comedy to sci-fi action comedy, it really helped to ensure that the sequel couldn't just be a rehash of the first movie. Plus, the increased action and entertaining bloody violence match the overall M3GAN vibe, even if the chills are largely absent. On the con side, the biggest issue is how convoluted the story is. Now, I fully acknowledge that the first movie isn't some ideal example of logically airtight, brilliantly crafted original storytelling. It had some issues, and was also extremely derivative, but it was fairly streamlined and focused. The shift to sci-fi action allows 2.0 to go bigger and get much more involved, but that does introduce some complexity-driven issues that really didn't need to be issues. It's fun and never gets confusing to follow or anything, but I do think this movie would have greatly benefited from the more streamlined approach of its predecessor. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying M3GAN 2.0 or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give M3GAN 2.0 3.5 out of 5 paws. It's just as entertainingly campy and ridiculous as the first film, with plenty of callbacks and returning characters for fans to enjoy. But it does introduce an unexpected and significant genre shift, toning down almost all of the horror comedy elements in favor of sci-fi action comedy. The story is much more convoluted this time around, and the film's influences are perhaps even more prominently displayed than those of the first movie, but that doesn't stop 2.0 from still being a ton of fun. I would recommend M3GAN 2.0 to anybody looking for a silly and entertainingly violent sci-fi action comedy. This film's influences are clear as day, so some may be put off by its derivativeness, but if you just want some good campy fun, this'll definitely deliver. 2.0 probably won't win the franchise many new fans, but existing fans' enjoyment will primarily depend on how you feel about the genre shift. Horror purists probably didn't like the first movie all that much anyway, but if you're hoping for more horror comedy and tension like that first film, you may find yourself at least somewhat underwhelmed by the shift to big sci-fi action set pieces. If you liked M3GAN 2.0, I would recommend Upgrade. Directed by Lee Wanell, this entertaining and slick sci-fi action thriller addresses the threat of AI technology in a unique and sometimes darkly humorous way, and likely served as inspiration for some of the technology ideas and action sequences in M3GAN 2.0. If you enjoyed this film's sci-fi action storyline, you'll definitely want to check out Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Perhaps 2.0's biggest influence, this is another sequel about an AI threat, featuring a kid teaming up with the franchise's former villain to try to stop a global apocalypse. And if you'd like another robot uprising film, you might want to watch I, Robot. Starring Will Smith, this sci-fi actioner mixes in comedy and drama to tell the story of a robot-hating cop who reluctantly has to team up with a robot in order to solve a deadly mystery before it's too late. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen M3GAN 2.0? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite sequel with a drastically different genre from the first film? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.